Welcome to Nice and Blunt. It's officially July. My name's Adam Riancho, and it's time for my top 10 running back rankings of 2024. Let's go. As always, these videos are intended for half PPR rankings, and we begin with number one, a no-brainer, Christian McCaffrey. He was super elite last year, and I don't expect things to change. The only red flag is that he is 28 years old this season, and he is coming off a 19-game season with a total 419 touches last year. So maybe he goes down, but I wouldn't expect that to happen. Over 126 yards per game last season, over 22 fantasy points per game. You can't really go wrong. He's a league winner every single year. And given the fact the Niners gave him a contract extension, there are no plans to change his role in this offense. So he's clearly number one. Don't get cute. You're still drafting him at the top. At number two, though, I'm going to go with Breece Hall of the New York Jets. I really like him. I was all on board with Breece Hall last year, despite coming off the ACL injury. And although he did start the season slow, it definitely was the right call. He was phenomenal, especially to close the season. If we remove the first month of the year and look at his 13 games with over 50% of the snap share, Breece Hall put up 9 touchdowns, 71 catches, that's 5.5 receptions per game, 102 yards per game, and an average of 17.1 points per game. The offense should be even better this season with Rodgers fully healthy. On top of that, they made a lot of investments to the offensive line, and I would expect another leap for Breece Hall, yet another year removed from that ACL tear. So really trust him. I love his talent, and he's one of my favorite players to root for. I have him at number 2. One spot above Bijan Robinson, who I view in the same tier, but did not perform as well as Breece last season. Bijan should expect better usage in a more consistent offense without Arthur Smith. For example, if you remove the migraine game out of the equation, then you got a lot better consistency from Bijan last season alone. And in those 16 games, he scored 8 touchdowns, 3.6 catches per game, 91 yards per game, and an average of 13.9 fantasy points per game. The new offensive coordinator is supposedly going to use him like Christian McCaffrey, Kyren Williams, and he's coming from the Rams offense, so that does make sense. But the backup situation was something of concern last year. Tyler Algier had 12 touches per game in 2023, and Bijan only had 17. So I expect 20 plus touches guaranteed for Bijan this season, and with higher efficiency, a better offense with a better quarterback, expect him to score more touchdowns and be a lot more consistent week in, week out. I don't think they're going to give him only one carry if he happens to have a migraine, one random game next season. Next up, though, we move into tier 2, where I have Jahmyr Gibbs at number 4. In 15 games last season, Gibbs put up 14.5 points per game, 84 yards per game, 3.5 receptions per game, and all 11 of his touchdowns came in the final 11 games. He was really on fire, starting to take over in the second half of the season. And yes, David Montgomery is a factor in this backfield, but Montgomery started to fade, is not a threat at all in the passing game, and I do expect the number 12 overall pick to have a much bigger role, be definitely more involved in year 2. So this offense is one of the highest rated according to Vegas, going to put up a ton of fantasy points. And obviously there's the contingent upside. If Montgomery were to ever go down, Gibbs would have this backfield all to himself, and his quarterback Jared Goff is not a threat at all in the run game to vulture touchdowns. So for those reasons, Gibbs is my running back 4. And if we look at the 3 games last year when he was the starter and Montgomery missed time, Gibbs was elite. He averaged 19.7 fantasy points per game, 23 touches per game, 5 catches per game, 132 yards per game, and 2 touchdowns. So the touchdowns could go up on a per game basis, and if he finished with over 20 this year, I wouldn't be entirely surprised. But if Montgomery does stay healthy, then those numbers are not going to happen, and maybe Gibbs does not finish this high. But he's so explosive, he can score from anywhere on the field, and coming into the league, I did compare him to a skinnier Jamal Charles. I think he does have that upside to really be that efficient and that incredible when his career is all said and done. So Gibbs is my running back 4, but I'm really tempted to rank Jonathan Taylor above him. I view them almost identically, but I do have Taylor at number 5. The only question with Taylor is the quarterback and how many touchdowns he will vulture on the goal line. Anthony Richardson only played like 3 full games last season, and in those 3 games, he did score 4 rushing touchdowns, albeit Jonathan Taylor was not on the field at all during that time span. So maybe things change, but Taylor is probably going to lose out a little bit on the goal line, but he is one of the few running backs who I can actually envision finishing as the RB1 next year. The reason for that is because he did it in 2021, his sophomore season in the NFL. He put up over 2,170 yards from scrimmage, 20 total touchdowns, only caught 40 receptions though, and that is the tiebreaker why I rank him behind Jahmyr Gibbs. His role in the passing game is not as elite, and if we look at his games last season, he did miss 7 games entirely due to injury, but he only played 8 games with at least 50+% of the snaps. So I'm going to cherry pick a little bit like I cherry picked with Breece Hall. And if we look at that 8-game sample size, we're looking at 21 touches per game, 99 yards per game, only 1.6 reception per game, and 8 touchdowns, an average of 16.7 points per game for Jonathan Taylor. So I view him almost identically to Gibbs. There's a player that can vulture him on the goal line. For Gibbs, it's Montgomery. For Taylor, it's Richardson. But because Gibbs catches more passes and does have some upside of even more potential if Montgomery were to get hurt, that is the tiebreaker and why I have Gibbs 1 spot over Taylor. But I really see them almost the same. And if you want to draft Taylor over Gibbs, I don't think you're crazy. I just think it's probably a more interesting, exciting bet to put Gibbs above him. So at 4 and 5, Gibbs, Taylor, view them almost the same. Number 6, though, I have Kyren Williams of the LA Rams. In the same vein as these other players, you want to draft good players on good teams, and Kyren Williams was amazing last year. He only played 12 games, but he did put up 15 touchdowns and did average 20.1 points per game on 21.7 touches, 2.7 catches per game, 112 yards per game. But they did draft Blake Corum in the 3rd round. And Kyren Williams is ultimately a 5th-round pick who has missed 12 games in 2 years. I want to rank him higher, but you can not dismiss his backup or his injury concerns. So while you could put him at number 2 overall, I think he's a little bit more risky than these other names above him. And I probably want to draft his handcuff, Blake Corum, because I think that's an extremely viable strategy. No matter what, you get a starting top 10 running back week in, week out. So lock him up on your roster. I love his ADP in the 3rd round. I think he's a really valuable steal, and there's a chance that he finishes as the RB1 himself. But lastly in this tier, I have Saquon Barkley as my running back 7, and he is moving to a better offense, better offensive line. But kind of like Jonathan Taylor, you have to worry about the quarterback stealing valuable touches on the goal line. Jalen Hurts scored 15 rushing touchdowns in 2023, and while there is no Jason Kelce anymore at center, I still expect the tush push to be a big part of their offensive play calling. Kellen Moore is the new OC in Philadelphia, but that's still their identity to push in Hurts when it's 4th and 1 or on the goal line. I expect it to be a very high-scoring offense yet again, and Barkley is going to get plenty of work. Last year in New York, in 14 games, Barkley put up 10 touchdowns, was averaging 20.6 touches per game, 2.9 receptions per game, 89 yards per game, and an average of 14.6 points per game in half PPR. He should be more efficient on similar volume, so the touchdowns are really the only concern, but I think it's hard to predict less than 10 touchdowns. I think he's still going to be very, very viable in that regard. He got paid $26 million guaranteed, $13 million per season, is one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. So I still trust him. I just worry about Hurts a little bit more, vulturing him, and that's really the only red flag for Barkley, but he has missed a few games over the course of his career. He probably misses at least 2 next season. At number 8, though, entering tier 3 in this video, I have Isiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know it's hard to envision a 7th-round pick being such a prolific player, but you have to look at his production last season, especially when Jerick McKinnon was off the field, because Jerick McKinnon is gone. He is no longer part of this backfield, and the only backup of concern is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a player we kind of all regard as a first-round bust. So the offense is going to be better this year, and Pacheco is going to be the workhorse by far and away. Kelsey's going to be 35. Yes, the wide receivers are better, but still this offense is going to lean on him like crazy. He put up almost 1,200 yards last season in 14 games, 9 touchdowns over the course of the season. But if you look at the 7 games specifically without Jerick McKinnon, these numbers are eye-popping. He saw 21.4 touches per game, 3.6 receptions per game, averaged 98 yards per game, and scored 8 touchdowns in those 7 games. That's an average of 18.4 points per game. So I actually might be ranking Pacheco too low, but there are a lot of other factors that make me concerned to put him in that truly elite top 7. So at number 8, I'm still pretty high on him. He's running back 11 on Underdog, and I think he's going, honestly, like a full round, if not too late. And I really want him wherever I can get him. The offense is going to be even better than last season. Yes, they might be more pass heavy, but as a whole, they're going to score more points, and that's just going to lead to more goal line rush attempts for Pacheco, and he also catches a lot of passes. This ranking could be too low. I feel really confident with him as my RB8. But at number 9, I have Travis Etienne, who is a player I really trust. While he did miss in his entire rookie season, he's played 2 straight seasons since then with 1,400 plus yards and has not missed a game, despite being banged up a little bit last year, coming on and off the field a few times in the second half of the season. He's still finished every game that he started, and I expect that to continue. I don't worry about him coming off the field. The coach is claiming that they want more of a committee, that Tank Bigsby should have more of a role, but that's what they said last year, and Tank Bigsby looked like shit. So I don't worry about that. Maybe it's a wise decision just to keep him healthy, but he should still be fine. And in 2023, Etienne was averaging 14.7 points per game on 19.1 touches per game, 3.4 catches per game, 87 yards per game, and did score 12 touchdowns. But the only red flag was that he only ran for 3.8 yards per carry. So there is room for improvement. They did bring in Brian Thomas Jr., but they also let go some weapons in the passing game, and I still think this offense mostly runs through Travis Etienne. If you look at his 4 games before the bye week, he had 4 straight games with 7 total touchdowns, and if he stays healthy, that rate could continue. 20-plus touchdowns is not impossible for Etienne. I don't think it happens, but 12, like last year, is probably the floor, and 15 is an optimistic, decent projection that could happen for Etienne. So as RB9, I think he's very safe. I like him a lot where he's going. In late round 4, sometimes he falls to me even in round 5, and that is a steal. But the last player of this video is Derrick Henry, my running back 10, who now plays in Baltimore. This offense is kind of a nightmare when you look at it just in the backfield. Lamar Jackson is a big threat with his legs, and while that does take away a little bit of volume from Henry, it also takes away a lot of defensive attention, and that's really going to open this up for Henry to produce incredible numbers. It is worth noting, though, he is entering his age 30 season, and that is a big red flag. You can't pretend like it's not. He has 2,185 career touches to his name, and yes, he's a freak athlete, but it is possible that he does go down with injury and falls off a cliff at some point or another. So that's the only reason I rank him this low, but I kind of want to rank him higher. Last year in 2023, the Ravens offered 21 total running back touchdowns to the position, and Gus Edwards accounted for 13 of them. So Henry is probably going to see that, if not more. And last year, he put up similar numbers. He had 12 touchdowns of his own. He played all 17 games for the Titans. He averaged only 13.2 points per game, but was seeing a big workload, 18.1 touches per game. Not a lot of receptions, only 1.6 catches per game, but 81 yards per game is very solid, and the efficiency probably goes up with Lamar alongside him in this offense. So I don't think it's going to be as boom bust. He was a little bit game script dependent, and I do project the Ravens for 13 wins this season. So the game script is definitely going to benefit Derrick Henry, and if he puts up 15 plus touchdowns, no one will be surprised. He could finish the season as a top 5 running back yet again, but because of his age, I have to lower him a little bit in the rankings, and that's why I have him at number 10. I think that this is his floor, assuming he stays healthy. So let's hope that happens, but those are the top 10 running backs, in my opinion, the players you want the most on your fantasy team, and that's it for this video. A reminder of the list. In the top tier, I have Christian McCaffrey, kind of in a tier of his own, but I still view Breece Hall and Bijan in the same tier. In tier 2, I have Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, and Saquon Barkley, but in tier 3, I have Isiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne, and Derrick Henry. Those are my top 10 running backs for 2024, and that concludes part 1 of this rankings video. If you don't want to miss out on part 2, ring the notification bell down below, and you won't miss out on any new content, and you'll also be notified every time I go live for a draft on Underdog. I do those 3 times a week. So look out for that. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. My name's Adam Riancho. Let me know down below in the comment section where you agree and disagree, and let me know who you think is my RB11 coming in to next season. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.